At this moment, the world has entered the Ice Age. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 851. This is the first time since the disaster the Ministry of National Engineering has carried out formal work. At this time, they are all very excited. After all, this is their first project after returning to the ground. All cheer me up. This is the first national project we received after the disaster. Don't go wrong and lose the face of our Eastern State Engineering Department. Minister, don't worry, we have already done this level of project countless times in the 150. How could something go wrong? This is not necessarily true. After all, I haven't touched a tool for half a year. If something goes wrong with your hand, maybe everyone should cheer up. The workers of these national engineering departments are naturally very happy to be able to return to the ground. After all, making huge national projects is what they are most willing to do. When living in the Sky City or the Ocean City, they can only do something about maintenance. Now they are finally returning to the ground and officially launching their national engineering mission, so they have invested 12 points of enthusiasm. The workers from the Ministry of Engineering came to the site for inspections in the first place. After all, they had no way to formally confirm where their flood control bridges were better built before they actually saw the soldiers. When they came to the original plateau area, now the ice field area, they couldn't help being shocked by the scenery in front of them. They saw that the Wanli Plateau was now frozen. One iceberg after another, buried under the thick layer of ice at this time, just exposed their peaks, and some mountains appeared on the ice like waves. I have to say that this kind of scenery is indeed a bit spectacular, like a solidified sea sculpture standing on the eastern land point. But they dare not relax their vigilance, because there are a lot of floods under the ice layer under their feet. Once these icebergs are broken, these floods will pour out and cause disasters again. At this time, all the workers of the National Engineering Department were wearing cold-resistant clothing with oxygen tanks. The plateau area at this time has been thickened by these ice layers, and the altitude is higher and the oxygen is thinner. My god, the altitude of this plateau area was already high enough, and now after adding these thick layers of ice, it's really high. Speak less, talk less, and save a little oxygen. There is a lot of flooding under these ice layers under our feet. I saw a worker from the National Engineering Department open the map, which was marked with various markers. Then he pointed to one of the places and said, "When I was here just now, I saw a river channel, which was already dry. We can use this river channel to introduce flood water into this river channel. Moreover, I have checked this river course, and it can be used directly when it leads to the sea." Another worker on the site glanced at his map and then said, "The direction that can be used for drainage has been roughly determined. Now I'll be responsible for determining the location of the flood control bridge." The so-called flood control bridge is actually a combination of a dam and a bridge. The bottom of the bridge can be used for flood control measures and the top can be used as a bridge deck. Our flood control bridge can be built in the upper reaches of this river. Chapter 852. Even if the drainage fails, floods raging on these flood control bridges can also prevent floods. Soon, they established the location of the flood control bridge upstream of the river. Not only that, they also planned a lake location near the river to be used as a reservoir when the flood is raging. After passing the flood control bridge, it will turn into a gentle stream and flow into these reservoirs. After the water in these reservoirs is full, it will pass through the river and reach the sea. First of all, they must first dig a huge reservoir, which is a man-made lake. But you must know that now this white cloud Lord Bianc is all ground made of mixture of 70% ice and 30% soil. 02 In the previous ice age, the soil was covered with a layer of ice and snow. They only needed to throw away the ice and snow to see the true face of the soil. But now it's different. After soaking in the flood, the water has fully entered the ground and mixed with the soil. With the advent of extreme cold, the water in these soils also began to freeze and mix with the soil. to become frozen soil point. Although the hardness of these frozen soils is not as hard as steel, it is also similar to stone, so their construction difficulty has risen again. Point workers from the Ministry of Engineering took the lead in planning the area of the new reservoir on the ground. They first used a laser mapping device to plan the construction route of the reservoir on the frozen soil point. Then they adopted the most violent construction method, which was to first use bombs to blast the ground, and then further repair the ground after the explosion, to shape it into the shape they wanted. Point with a loud noise. I saw those geothermal bombs exploded on the ground, and the ground was blown into pits. Then workers from the Ministry of Engineering of these countries began to use tools to plan ramps around the reservoir that can be accessed by excavators. Today's excavators have also been transformed. Some heating plates are used inside the excavators for heating. Only in this way can they dig on the frozen soil point. If you want to excavate the ground, you must first completely thaw the moisture in the frozen soil. Otherwise, the frozen soil will be as hard as a rock, which will cause huge damage to the construction equipment. Point after heating, thawing, and digging, and after a series of operations, the whole project began to formally progress. It took them a whole week to create this man-made lake just right. Point they also reinforced this man-made lake to make it a real reservoir. Not only that, but also added some observation tests at the bottom of it to observe the changes in the water volume in this reservoir in real time. Point then, the flood control bridge was built above the reservoir. First, they had to build the foundation for the supporting structure of the flood control bridge. Point this requires them to start excavating accurately on the ground. They cannot use geothermal bombs for bombing. The damage of geothermal bombs is too great. Once they explode, the pits that appear may be far larger than the diameter they need. Point therefore, they can only use the drill bit, a precision engineering device, to build the foundation. Chapter 853. When Ying Ziyue finished dealing with the post-disaster construction, she stretched out. It is not in the plateau area recently. The flood control bridge is being built. How is the progress of this project now? The secretary on the side opened his tablet and replied after some inquiries. The current project progress has reached more than half. The basic framework has been constructed and the reinforcement work is now in progress. The progress of the project is pretty good. Now the source of troops and the land after the disaster have turned into frozen soil as solid as rocks. It is not easy to be able to carry out construction projects on these animated pictures. Ying Ziyue stood up. It just happens that the matter here has been dealt with a bit. Let's take advantage of this free time and go to the project site to check it carefully. Then they took the UFO aircraft to the construction site. After arriving in the plateau area, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but sigh that today the plateau area has really become an ice sheet with thousands of miles of ice. Point looking around, there were no other objects except the endless ice and snow. At this moment, a huge bridge appeared on the horizon. This arched bridge was built at the front end of the ice sheet, and underneath him is a huge river that passes through. The lower reaches of the river is a reservoir, and below it is a naturally formed river that leads to the sea. Ying Ziyue landed on the project site in the UFO aircraft, and immediately staff from the Ministry of Engineering came to greet him. Leader Ying, the progress of our flood control bridge project has reached about 80%, and we are pouring materials so far. Ying Ziyue stepped forward to check this flood control bridge carefully. This flood control bridge is related to the safety of the city downstream, so the construction must not be sloppy. Group Leader Ying can rest assured that the internal steel structure of our flood control bridge uses purple gold alloy as the frame, which is absolutely extremely strong. Even if the entire ice sheet collapses, our flood control bridge will definitely be able to stop them. Then is the poured cement. We use a specially made waterproof cement. This kind of cement will automatically form an air layer inside to prevent water molecules from intruding into the cement and causing erosion and damage to the cement. Then it is its external structure. For the external structure, we use graphene as its external structure. Graphene has a relatively low active response and can extend the life of the flood control bridge. Not only that, the strength of graphene is also enough to pass the barrier, so that the capacity of the flood control bridge has also been continuously improved. At the same time, we have also set up a reservoir downstream to reduce the impact of water buffering on the river. Next, we will expand the river to make it more floodable. It can be said that the workers of the Ministry of Engineering have worked hard this time, and now this project of flood prevention measures can be said to be perfect. After the construction is completed, what method do you plan to use to drain the internal flood? Upon hearing this question, the workers from the Ministry of Engineering were also confident. We are also very sophisticated about this. We had specially set up a diversion machine to design an engineering site on the iceberg and then apply this diversion. The machine goes deep into the iceberg for diversion. Chapter 854. Later, under the guidance of workers from the Ministry of Engineering of this country, Ying Ziyue came to a storage place for engineering equipment. I saw in this storage location, one after another novel construction machinery lined up here. Their shape is like a water pump, but there is a drill behind them, which seems to be able to expand and contract continuously. This is the drainage machine we have researched. The drill at the back will continue to expand and contract. First, a small hole will be made on the surface of the iceberg, and then we will stuff some heating pipes into the holes of the iceberg to prevent it from happening. Second, freeze. In this case, we will have a continuous flow of energy from the inside of the iceberg to draw a lot of floods, knowing that these floods will run dry. Ying Ziyue touched her chin, but you should also consider the pressure inside the iceberg when you drain the water. If the pressure inside the iceberg is abnormal, it is likely to cause the entire iceberg to rupture and collapse. We have also considered this issue. The real purpose of building the flood control bridge is to prevent icebergs from bursting and flooding. Ying Ziyue nodded. After inspecting the flood control bridge, Ying Ziyue returned to her office to handle some affairs. After a few days of this, a live broadcast was suddenly released on the official website, and Ying Ziyue clicked incuriously. The live content is located in the icefield area, where the flood control bridge is located. It seems that they are preparing to divert the flood water inside the icefield. Hello everyone. The icefield area that you see now was actually a plateau area before. Because of the massive flooding and the sudden arrival of extreme cold, this area that was originally a plateau has become an ice sheet that has been frozen thousands of miles away. But after it became an ice sheet, a lot of floods were stored inside. If these floods are poured out, it is likely to have an impact on the downstream cities. So in order to prevent it, we decided to take the initiative to use flood prevention measures and various drainage methods to divert the floods inside the iceberg and completely eliminate the hidden dangers inside the ice sheet. When the viewers and friends in the live broadcast room saw this ice-covered icefield, they couldn't help exclaiming, "Never imagined that the flood would cause such a powerful change to the Earth's topography." Even in the Ice Age plateau area before the disaster, in addition to a large amount of ice and snow, it still maintained its previous plateau state. Now it is completely changed and has become a frozen ice sheet for thousands of miles. Unexpectedly, the flood was so severe this time that it almost changed the terrain on the Earth. I also checked on the latest official map update. Almost all the maps I was familiar with before are no longer available. Now the country is still trying its best to explore the surrounding new terrain. I wonder if we humans can still live unharmed in this new environment of the Great Purge of the Earth. At this time, the workers of the Ministry of Engineering of the People's Republic of China had already begun to work on the icefield point at the edge of the iceberg. There is a huge iceberg blocking the path of these floods, so workers from the Ministry of Engineering will then drill holes on this iceberg to divert the internal floods. Chapter 855. With everyone's live broadcast, workers from the Ministry of Engineering of these countries began to install drilling machines on some planned locations on the ice sheet point. At this time, the slope of the ice sheet is extremely large, and they must use ropes to fix themselves on these ice layers like climbers do. Then they installed the drilling machine on these ice layers. With the start of the drilling machine, a large amount of ice slag sprayed out along the pipe next to the drilling machine and fell aside. The drilling machine also entered the space inside the ice sheet at a rapid speed. At this moment, a worker from the Ministry of Engineering suddenly shouted, "I have already drilled through." The inner ice layer of the ice sheet varies in thickness, so some places can be easily drilled through, and some places need to be continuously deepened. And then a large number of holes have been drilled into the flood layer one after another. The drilling machine at this time cannot be stopped. Once they stop the water flow, they will be frozen again by the outside cold, and the holes they turned out will be blocked again in a short time point. Therefore, when the drilling machine is still running, they installed the deflector on it, and the heating pipe inside the deflector enters these passages, so that the opened passage will not be so easily affected. The extreme cold outside freezes gradually, more and more floods were diverted out, and flowed into the river below. These water currents converged continuously in the reservoir below. At this moment, there was a click. Everyone cried out in secret. A worker from the National Engineering Department looked at the surface of the drilling machine in front of him, and couldn't help being surprised. I saw a crack appeared next to the drill she was on. What does this mean? This shows that the internal pressure has begun to change abnormally. The pressure inside and outside this iceberg is inconsistent, and it has begun to change. Although they have already opened up some vents above the ice sheet, these ice layers are too unstable. Once there are a lot of hollow areas inside, they will become fragile, extremely fragile. Brothers, the worst has happened, and now we immediately leave this place. Ignore those engineering machines. Life matters. From the new novel group 872,847,971 this group updates daily novels. From the new novel group 872,847,971, the monitoring personnel of the National Engineering Department of Time also discovered the anomaly of this iceberg and immediately began to order the workers who were under construction to evacuate. Find flowers. Their audience friends in the live broadcast room still don't know what happened. They only know that these workers suddenly started to evacuate, and they couldn't help feeling a little strange. Not long after these workers were evacuated, there was a loud bang, and a huge crack appeared in the entire ice sheet, and then a lot of flood spewed out from these cracks. The monitoring staff of the entire flood control bridge couldn't help but frown. Before the actual test, no one knew whether the flood control bridge could stop such turbulent floods. It is important to know that among these floods, there is not only the impact of water currents, but also a large number of ice blocks mixed with the floods, and the impact of these ice blocks is no less than that of a cannonball. With a loud bang, I saw the entire ice sheet exploded, and a large amount of flood water poured out, wrapped in a lot of huge ice blocks toward the flood control bridge, and slammed it over. At this time, even the viewers in the live broadcast room were nervous. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 856. What's the matter? Aren't they trying to drain the internal flood? Why are these floods spewed out automatically? Did they fail the drainage? Originally, there was a lot of floods inside this ice sheet, making the entire ice sheet form a hole, but once these floods are pumped out, these ice sheets will become a fragile shell. It can be said that the unscathed 153 to drain the floods inside these ice sheets is an event with a very small success rate. It is not surprising that such a thing can happen. Look at the workers of the Ministry of Engineering. They have already built flood control bridges in the downstream area. This situation is also in their expectations, so there is no need to worry that the flood control can stop the ravages of these floods. In the flood control bridge at this time, many workers watched the flood that pours like a huge wave in front of them, and they couldn't help but beat the drum. Can they really withstand such a huge flood? At this moment, the first wave of flood struck them with a loud bang, and the flood control bridge under their feet was constantly trembling. The flood was wrapped in a lot of ice and possessed incomparably powerful power. The workers of the National Engineering Department who were on the flood control bridge couldn't help but tremble slightly, and then these floods were mixed in the valves below. Waves of turbulent floods hit the top of the flood control bridge. The flood control bridge just trembled, but it did not fall. After rounds of attacks, the workers from the Ministry of Engineering couldn't help but relax. In a sigh of relief, it seems that the flood control bridge we built is really very strong, and it can withstand such turbulent floods. Now we can't be idle. We need to break some of the ice blocks that are stuck near the valve, or they will stay stuck here, and sooner or later the valve will be damaged by them. The flood is mixed with a large number of ice blocks. These ice blocks are very large, so they will get stuck in the valve under the flood control bridge, blocking the entry of other floods. Although they are stuck, they will cause a certain obstacle to the flood and reduce its kinetic energy, but at the same time this also increases the capacity of the flood control bridge. Therefore, they must crush these ice blocks. Otherwise, if this continues, the flood control bridge cannot support such a large number of ice blocks, and is constantly suppressed. The method they adopted was also very simple. They called a large number of cranes on the upper platform of the flood control bridge, and then used these cranes to lift the huge ice blocks stuck in the middle point. Then after these huge ice cubes were lifted up, the flood continued forward, and then brought new huge ice cubes. Then the crane lowered the huge ice cubes, and the two huge ice cubes collided together and destroyed at the same time. Such a continuous cycle. Soon, the huge ice block near the flood control bridge was crushed by them. And the flood prevention Big Cairo also played its due role. After a large number of floods passed through him, it will become a gentle river. Then it merges into the reservoir below, and after being bred by the reservoir, it turns into a continuous stream of water into the river and flows into the sea. The flood lasted for 3 days and 3 nights before it ceased, and the ice sheet returned to its previous appearance. Chapter 857. In the 34th year of the Ice Age, in January, the National Engineering Department built the Xihai Bridge in the plateau area, successfully protecting the downstream cities from flooding in the ice sheet, and also regaining the plateau area that had been frozen for thousands of miles. After the flood was over, the ice sheet returned to its previous appearance. After a cold wind blows, the entire plateau area has become a piece of frozen soil, but it is much better than the ice-covered area before. The current plateau area can be used as a construction site for some projects, but the previous ice field area is completely unsatisfactory. This is also the first territory that mankind has recovered from nature. At this time, Ying Ziyue glanced at the plateau area on the screen, and the corners of her mouth could not help but raise slightly, showing a smile. 02 Facing the new era of Ice Age, human beings still exerted their tenacious viability, striving to survive in this harsh environment. Nowadays, the plateau area has been regained a large amount of land resources, which can be used for the construction of our new projects. After all, among the land of the entire eastern continent, only the plateau areas have endless land resources. Although it has endless land resources, the living environment in the plateau area is really not suitable for human life. Nowadays, most of the human cities are concentrated in the central plains. There is no harsh terrain and no harsh environment. It is an excellent land resource sufficient for human survival. Just as Ying Ziyue was about to start planning the construction plan for the plateau area, the windows in the office were rustled by the wind, and he couldn't help but frown. What's the matter? This gust of wind has been blowing for nearly a month. Why hasn't it stopped? This place shouldn't be the kind of zone with multiple air currents. If something is abnormal, there must be a demon. For example, when a huge sandstorm occurred in the Sahara Desert, there would be a lot of dust in the air. Now this gust of wind has been blowing for more than a month, and it may not necessarily be an abnormal phenomenon. Ying Ziyue opened the communication group on the official website for the first time. All the people here can post some abnormal situations here for discussion. State departments also frequently come here for inspections to see if there are any signs of anomalies. What the hell is going on recently? The strong wind here has been blowing for a whole month, and there is no desire to see it stop. Our side is also very windy, and now it's a problem to go out. This violent wind blew day and night, and my brain bust. It seems that it is not just the printing of the scriptures, but squalls of varying degrees have occurred throughout the country, which shows that there must be an abnormal phenomenon. So Ying Ziyue immediately contacted the National Weather Service. Who knew that? Before he could call, the staff of the National Weather Service took the lead to call him. Leader Ying, you must have discovered that there are violent winds of varying degrees across the country. Now our National Meteorological Administration has the latest findings. Can you please come here? We will report to you face to face in detail. No problem. I'm going to go to the National Weather Service. The new Ice Age is also a huge test for mankind. It is not surprising that such frequent anomalies occur. Chapter 858. Ying Ziyue took the UFO aircraft to the National Meteorological Administration. This time, the staff of the National Meteorological Administration welcomed him as soon as possible. Leader Ying, you are finally here. We have already drawn up the anomalies about the whole country into a summary awaiting your review. After the team leader Ying found the summary report in the hands of the National Meteorological Administration staff, he went to the central control room of the National Meteorological Administration while watching, and the National Meteorological Administration staff on the side was also explaining to him. Nowadays, abnormal winds are happening all over the world. We have monitored the climate around the world based on the air corridor system and found clues. Nowadays, there are a large number of storm sources in the sea and in the wilderness all over the world. These storm sources seem to occur at the same time. They complement each other and form a rare meteorological symbiosis chain. Together, they caused a large amount of airflow effect on each other, which made them continue to circulate and purify the wind phenomenon, and it became more obvious. The wind phenomenon caused by all parts of the world is that they are at work. Ying Ziyue checked their summary report. There are indeed a large number of these storm sources, distributed all over the world, and their distribution is extremely clever. It is simply the ingenious work of nature. Don't underestimate the squally wind phenomenon caused by these storms. It is now a squally wind phenomenon, but it was also mentioned in the summary report just now. These storms will continue to evolve with the increase of air currents. When they reach a certain level, they will not be squally wind phenomenon, but typhoon phenomenon. Not only that, these storms seem harmless to humans and animals, but as long as a little reaction is added, such as the collapse of some icebergs and a large amount of cold air entering the eye of the storm from a certain place, these storms will immediately become a ferocious beast. At that time, not only a typhoon, but also a large number of cold waves will follow. At this moment, the air corridor system issued an alarm. The air corridor system reminds you that after a lot of our calculations, there will be a cold wave sweeping the entire eastern country. Please be prepared. Upon hearing this news, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but frowned. It seemed that this cold wave was the effect of a certain storm, which produced a series of chain reactions, and the resulting Hanshang. Afterwards, Ying Ziyue instructed the secretary on the side, you don't need to follow me now, you go to other departments to release the evacuation requirements for Xihai. I will go to the central control room of the National Meteorological Administration to wait for you, and release. Come back after you are finished. This cold wave is inevitable, so take precautions before the cold wave arrives. The cold wave is not a catastrophic disaster for human beings today, and it can be successfully passed as long as it is carefully guarded against. Art nodded, and then began to contact other state departments to prepare for Zhao, Korean, and North Korean protective measures. Ying Ziyue followed the staff of the National Meteorological Administration to the central control room to check the distribution of storms around the world. When he came to the central control room of the National Meteorological Administration and saw the evenly distributed red dots on the screen, he couldn't help but touch his chin. These storms really complement each other. Destroy any one, and the other storms will soon. There is a new storm in the area. Chapter 859. If you want to destroy something, you must have the same power as her, or even stronger than him. Ying Ziyue thought of using the storm messenger to fight against powerful storms. At that time, they used the storm messenger to create an artificial storm. They used the power of the artificial storm to fight against the nature and produced a huge storm. It's just that the huge storms at that time only spread to the coastal areas, but now the storm swarms produced cover the entire global area. So they must and be able to have the power on par with the global storm. Immediately, Ying Ziyue suddenly thought, why not build a weather system that controls the global climate of the sky? We must know that before the Ice Age, they used artificial rainfall, artificial snow and other methods to adjust the climate around the world. Now that the Earth's environment is even worse, why don't they use today's technology to build a climate system unique to human civilization? We must know that the air corridor system was established at that time to monitor abnormally changing climate phenomena around the world. Now the air corridor system is fully mature and can be constructed in the next step. Why not use the air corridor system and the meteorological system to be built next to build a human meteorological system unique to the Earth's civilization? Just do it. Ying Ziyue contacted the National Meteorological Administration immediately and proposed this plan. After hearing the news, the National Meteorological Administration also stated that the plan was executable. Today's Earth civilization is no longer the previous state or even close to the state of the second level civilization. The current Earth civilization technology is sufficient to support Ying Ziyue's wild plan, which is to build a global artificial climate control system. So far, the only weather control machine we have studied is the Stormbringer, but the shortcoming of the Storm Messenger is also obvious. That is, it takes a lot of accurate calculations and long-term accumulation to generate huge storms. If it is to be used as a storm control system for a global artificial climate control system, it is simply impossible to achieve. First of all, the global artificial climate control system needs to be suspended in the sky to adjust the global climate anytime and anywhere, so their positions are changing all the time. That is to say, at all times, the storm messengers have to adjust their data according to the changes in their positions. Such data calculations must be very huge. In addition, the time required for the storm messenger to save is very long. In such a long time, a lot of changes can take place. Therefore, the Stormbringer can only be used as part of the artificial climate control system after improvement. Leader Ying, if you want to create a huge gust of wind in a short period of time, you may as well go to the Everest military base and ask them. They have a wind god bomb that can create a gust of wind. Indeed, before the disaster, the Everest military base had a special missile called the Fengshan bomb. The original intention of the Fengshan bomb was to destroy the eye of the wind in the center of the cold wave. However, with the increasing of the storm nowadays, the huge ELS bomb is gradually eliminated. After all, the main core of the ELS bomb is gas compression technology. The gas was compressed and stuffed into the bomb, and then when the bomb exploded, the gas rediffused and formed a huge gust of wind. Chapter 860. Ying Ziyue arrived at the Everest military base. At this time, all state departments including the Everest military base were all in a state of prosperity after the disaster at the Everest military base. All members are sorting out the materials and resources sealed up before the disaster, and are preparing for post-disaster reconstruction and reconstruction. Leader Ying, why are you here? The staff at the Everest military base did not receive the news that Ying Ziyue was coming to inspect. Ying Ziyue waved her hand, and then asked, I heard that there is a bomb called Fengshan bomb in your Everest military base. Yes, there is a special bomb at our Mount Everest military base, called the Fengshan bomb, which is specially designed to deal with some cold waves and some storms. The missile-guided stage has been developed so far. Ying Ziyue was delighted after hearing this. Then how many bombs are left now? Who knows that? After hearing this sentence, the staff at the Everest military base couldn't help but froze for a while, and then answered truthfully, Leader Ying, since the Storm Messenger was developed, we have sealed all the Fengshan bombs. NS. After all, when facing the Stormbringer is stronger than the Fengshan bomb in any aspect. So after the Stormbringer's interview, these Fengshan bombs were gradually sealed up. After all, they were no longer suitable for use against storms. We just discovered these ELS bombs during the investigation. Because they were soaked in the flood, they were no longer usable. So now we don't have a single ELS bomb in the Everest military base. After hearing these words, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but frowned, and then asked, then I ask you, does your Everest military base still have the kind of air compression technology that is used to make Fengshan bombs? Hearing these words, the staff member of the Everest military base stretched his brows and smiled slightly. This is true. I will take you to visit it immediately. Then they came to a laboratory that had just been restarted. In fact, there were some workers in this laboratory repairing a machine Zero Fine Flowers. This is the air compressor we use. These air compressors can compress the air to a solid state, and then these solid air blocks will be stuffed into the Fengshan bomb. With the explosion of the Fengshan bomb, the solid air was released. Subsequently, the staff member asked those staff members who were operating the air compressor to demonstrate the operation of the machine, and saw that the machine started to operate under the control of the staff. It was obvious that a large amount of air was being sucked into the air compressor. After a while, a square iron ball appeared under the air compressor. Captain Ying, the air area drawn by the air compressor just now is about the area of an entire military base, and now they are all compressed into this fist-sized space. The shell of this compressed air is made of purple gold alloy, otherwise no alloy can withstand the pressure of such a huge compressed air. As long as this shell is broken, huge air will gush out, forming a storm. Chapter 861. Except for such a powerful metal as Xihai alloy, there is really no other metal that can withstand such a huge atmospheric pressure inside. Unexpectedly, it was such a small iron ball that could burst out such a violent hurricane. Ying Ziyue looked at the staff at the Everest military base and asked, "I want to ask how many of your air compressors are still there?" 160 reported that apart from this air compressor in our laboratory, it is estimated that there is only one in the country. Originally, we had other air compressors, but they were all suffering in the flood. If it is damaged, this one can still be used for maintenance. Ying Ziyue frowned slightly. The production capacity of an air compressor is definitely not enough. What it needs is a Fengshen system covering the world and a large number of Fengshen bombs as their basic weapon to control the climate. So do you now have the design drawings for this air compressor? The design drawings are still well preserved. Now that the design drawings are still intact, what they need to do next is much simpler. Ying Ziyue immediately sent the design drawings of the air compressor to the National Engineering Department and asked them to make improvements and transformations based on the design drawings of the air compressor to increase its production capacity and the density of compressed air. After receiving this drawing, the National Engineering Department immediately made improvements and transformations based on this drawing, so that the production efficiency of the air compressor and the density of compressed air reach the maximum efficiency point soon. The National Engineering Department designed an improved version of this air compressor, and under Ying Ziyue's special order, after they designed the improved version of the air compressor, they immediately produced the improved version of the air compressor, producing a total of more than 100 units. What did the minister let us produce so many air compressors for? Don't ask if you don't know, and don't guess. If the official announces it, then it will be announced. If they don't want to announce it, then don't ask too much about this matter. The main purpose of our National Engineering Department being promoted to a national department is to follow the state's orders. At this moment, the official website released the news. That is the new plan, the birth of the Fengshen Project Zero. This plan turned out to shock everyone in the world, because the core of the Fengshen plan is to use today's human technology to artificially control the changes in the weather. The Fengshen plan is to control the airflow around the world. This is simply a magical technique, and Westerners can't help being surprised. Finally, Dongfang no longer bears the control on the ground. They finally stretched their palms to the sky. I said that the Great Eastern countries are the gods of the new century. They created the sun, and now they are about to control the power of the wind. My god, this is too crazy. I never dreamed that this would happen. Sooner or later, the Great Eastern Congress will become true gods, and then there will be real people calling for the wind and rain on the earth. The Fengshen project is only a part of their meteorological system. After the Fengshen project is over, other plans will be added to the climate system to form a global meteorological system network. Chapter 862. Suddenly, the National Engineering Department set up a factory in the open space, and all the factories in this factory are air compressors. These air compressors frantically absorb the surrounding air, and then compress it into iron balls one after another. These iron balls have a friendly name called storm balls, and these storm balls will be the most important cornerstone for the establishment of the Fengshen project. Ying Ziyue came to the factory. If there is a machine that can see the changes in gasoline, you can see the current factory 02, just like a storm vortex, continuously drawing air from the surroundings. Now what point has the production of these storm balls reached? According to your instructions from team leader Ying, there are now thousands of storm balls produced, and they are still approaching according to your indicators. After hearing this report, Ying Ziyue couldn't help but smiled, and then said encouragingly, "Very well, please continue to produce. It must reach the target I said. It doesn't matter if you produce more." On the other side of the National Space Administration, they are studying the latest satellite For this satellite, they even invited researchers from the National Research Center to conduct research together, because this satellite is different from the satellites they have developed before. The satellites they have developed before are all designed to be able to work in outer space. The satellite they are developing now is to be able to work in the high altitudes on the Earth's surface. It's not so much a satellite, it's better to say that this is a global fort, because its role is to store these storm balls, and then ship these storm balls to all parts of the world. Before, the team leader Ryan specifically explained that these satellites are not required to be suspended in space, as long as they can patrol the surface of the Earth, but the height of these satellites needs to be in the atmosphere. Otherwise they are easily affected by the air currents generated on the Earth's surface. This satellite needs to be designed with more precision. After all, to add an automatic cruise system, its mechanical parts may be more complicated than ordinary satellites. In a blink of an eye, these surface satellites have also been gradually developed, and mass production has begun, because these surface satellites are not the same as those in the sky. They are smaller and smarter. If those space satellites are the eyes of the Earth, then these surface satellites are the guards of the Earth, and they will be suspended in the atmosphere according to the set height point. Drop storm bombs anytime and anywhere in the center of the cold wave, or in the center of the storm, to prevent these storms or cold waves from occurring. In a blink of an eye, a large number of surface satellites were produced. And because of the continuous occurrence of storms in various parts of the Earth, all parts of the Earth were also affected by strong winds. Even in some areas, because these winds are mixed with cold waves, they have to endure the severe cold brought by these winds. The impact of these storms on humans is getting more and more serious, and they must establish the control device of the surface function system as soon as possible. In the blink of an eye, it was the official start date of the ELS project, and that was the official launch date of the ELS project. On this day, the official live broadcast of the ELS project will be launched, so that all audiences can see the official launch of the ELS project. All of a sudden, a large number of viewers poured into the live broadcast room, only to see black containers appearing in the live broadcast room screen. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 863. Is this a secret weapon made by the Eastern powers to deal with the global storm? It's actually packed in a container. It's too mysterious, isn't it? What exactly is inside it? No matter what's in it, it's over quickly. I really can't stand this damn weather. In this windy weather, I don't even dare to go out, for fear of being blown away by the strong wind outside. This audience is not telling a joke. In some places closer to the center of the storm, the wind can even blow people up. So far, there have been several cases of missing persons who have been blown off across the country. Therefore, the Great Eastern Powers also officially reminded the people not to go out easily and try to hide at home. At this moment, a behemoth appeared in the screen of the live broadcast room, and someone recognized it at that time. Isn't this the city in the sky, built by the Great Eastern Country? I saw a city in the sky, descending from the sky, and from his body, dropped a lot of steel cables. These steel cables fell on the containers, and the staff immediately tied the steel locks to the containers. Unexpectedly, this city in the sky could still be used for transportation. This city in the sky is much stronger than those transport helicopters, so many containers can be transported all at once. Originally, the contents of these containers had to wait for the Sky City to rise to a high altitude before being released. Afterwards, these numerous containers slowly rose with the Sky City. Under the eyes of everyone, the Sky City began to move slowly. A worker took a crowbar in his hand and opened one of the containers. All of a sudden, a black object fell from the container, like a small black ball, and then spread its wings. The black ball was transformed into a small satellite suspended high in the sky. Above. Not only that, after this small satellite is suspended in the sky, it is still using the propeller above its head to continuously ascend, and some flames will be ejected from its tail for propulsion. Suddenly, one after another small black balls fell from the container, and then they all began to rise into the sky uniformly. Dear viewers, what everyone sees is the surface satellites we have developed, and these surface satellites are now climbing according to their own set altitudes. After they climb to a certain height, they will begin to adjust their positions according to the program settings, and then they will form a system network covering the world. Realization of the Xihai City began to move to the west. Not only that, workers on it would open a container every once in a while, and then these surface satellites would fall out of it. Point after the gradual sky, the King's City surrounds the entire Earth. These surface satellites are all scattered, and these surface satellites gradually rise into the sky. After 3 days and 3 nights, all the surface satellites are all reset. Point when all these surface satellites were back in place, a voice suddenly sounded in the central control room of the National Weather Service. Welcome to use the Fengshan system. The air corridor system is being connected. The connection is completed, and the data adjustment is in progress. Chapter 864. In a blink of an eye, the Fengshan system has completed the conjoined sharing mode with the air corridor system, which means that afterwards, the two systems will complete the data sharing between the systems. Only through the air corridor system can the Fengshan system know exactly where anomalies have occurred in all parts of the world, so that it can prescribe the right medicine. Point today, the Fengshan system has just been established, and it will fight the global storm to show its own strength. Point. After seeing these tiny surface satellites, many people are extremely unconfident in their reaction to it. These satellites don't seem to be a big deal. Can they really deal with global storms? The size of these surface satellites is not even the size of ordinary sanitation. It is estimated that it is difficult to fight against this kind of global storm. Don't jump to conclusions before using it officially. After all, we humans are very advanced in science and technology, and we can't make judgments based on appearance alone. At this time, the live broadcast room was divided into 2 parts, one of which was showing the surface satellites in the sky, and the other was looking at the source of a storm from a distance. It can be seen that the surface satellite is like a fort in the sky, with its muzzle facing downwards, and it shows that the surface satellite has reached the source of the storm point. But the surface satellite has been hanging above the source of the storm for a long time, but there is no movement for a long time, and the audience in the live broadcast room can't sit still for a while. What's the matter? This satellite is only hanging on the head and doesn't move a bit. Let us see what it can do. At this moment, the host of the live broadcast room immediately stood up and then said, "Don't worry, viewers. So far, surface satellites around the world are calibrating the source of the storm. As a chain effect of global storms, we must defeat these storms at the same time to be able to stop the global storms. Otherwise they will continue to produce. So the reason why these surface satellites hang above the source of these storms and stay motionless is to wait for other satellites to launch together." After the host in the live broadcast room explained it, many viewers gradually understood it. Point then the surface satellite in the live broadcast moved, only to see it hit a small iron ball, and the iron ball fell straight to the source of the storm. Point just when all the spectators were at a loss, the small iron ball suddenly exploded, and then a violent storm swept across the source of the storm, and the source of the storm gradually subsided under the interference of the huge wind and waves. At the same time, the sources of storms all over the world were attacked by storm balls, and a global storm swept the entire Earth. Point everyone could feel a huge wind and wave blowing over their faces, but when the wind and wave passed, they could no longer feel the continuous gust of wind. The Great Eastern Powers succeeded, and they successfully defeated the global storm, which also means that they will fully control the wind of the entire Earth. My God. The Great Eastern countries actually did it. They are now the true creators of the world. I don't believe in God anymore. I'm now changing my faith. My faith is the East. Chapter 865. In July 33 of the Ice Age, the Fengshan project was officially put into use, which means that humans will completely master the wind of nature and become their own masters. The successful implementation of the Fengshan plan means that humans have successfully obtained their dominance from the hands of nature, and since then they no longer have to endure the disasters of nature. This is a major advancement in meteorology for mankind, which means that they have fully grasped the power of wind and can mobilize global storms anytime and anywhere. Ying Ziyue smiled slightly. At least in the future, under the generalization of this function system, the phenomenon of huge cold waves and huge storms will not easily occur in the world. Ying Ziyue returned to the office and looked at the drawing on his desk. Long before this global storm came, he had a huge project that was about to be brewing. It's just that this plan was temporarily delayed due to the impact of the global storm, and now that the eternal nighttime passed, it's almost time to come. At that time they are about to start the construction of another huge project. For the construction of this huge project, Ying Ziyue temporarily named it Glacier Arc. In the Universe Observatory at this time, all the staff members are staring at the screen in front of them, constantly calculating the state of the meteorites in space. Since the floods raged, the staff of the Universe Observatory have successively started to clean up the cosmic meteorites. With their unremitting efforts, the originally densely packed cosmic meteorites have now become sparsely scattered. And just today they detected that a violent cosmic storm is coming. A cosmic storm is a peculiar phenomenon generated in the universe. A special magnetic field will appear and generate a lot of gravitational force, which blows the surrounding small meteorites like a storm. Spread out. And this cosmic storm occurs in the solar system. Once these cosmic storms blow through the solar system, these tiny meteorites will disperse from the Earth, and then the state of eternal night will completely end. At this moment, the instrument of the Universe Observatory showed that the magnetic force in the solar system was rising rapidly, and a huge shock wave traversed the entire solar system and the tiny meteorites were instantly blown away. Among them, some small meteorites also passed through the sky thunder system and fell into the Earth's atmosphere. On this day, all the people of the Earth also saw a large number of meteor showers falling from the sky. Zero fine flowers. However, these meteor showers have been wiped out in the atmosphere, and there is no way to reach the Earth's surface. Then the entire outer space suddenly disappeared, and the sun's rays were shining on the Earth again. Zero. Suddenly, after many days, the people on the Earth finally saw the sun again. They were taken aback for a while, and then began to cheer. After all, the real sun is much more comfortable than the artificial sun. Ordinary people are cheering, but the State Departments dare not have the slightest metabolism. Now the active state is over, the sun is shining on the Earth again. This means that the Earth's environment is bound to change again, and they are not sure what kind of chain reaction will be triggered. All units should pay attention to immediately determine the melting situation of icebergs across the country, and do not slack in the slightest. All units pay attention to immediately determine the melting situation of the national ice sheet, especially those ice fields with some floods in the middle should pay special attention. Chapter 866. Suddenly, the eastern staff across the country immediately entered a state of guard, because they knew that once the state of eternal night was over, it would be accompanied by a rise in temperature. Large-scale temperature changes are likely to affect the internal structure of those icebergs. Some people may not understand that the same changes in sub-zero temperature have any effect on these icebergs, although it is below zero. Nature in 160 still follows the laws of physics. In the process of global temperature rise, other objects will definitely absorb some heat, and that part of the heat is enough to produce a series of chain reactions, just like the butterfly effect proposed by the same scientist. A butterfly sets off an airflow, and this airflow generates a tornado in another place after a series of chain reactions. This is the butterfly effect. Needless to say, the rising global climate may not necessarily affect those icebergs, so they must make a series of monitoring and preventive responses to those icebergs and ice sheets on the surface of the sea. At this time, the Eastern Giant deep sea ship is opening up one route after another with its huge body. At this moment, the iceberg next to it made a loud clicking sound, which was heard by all the staff on the Eastern Giant deep sea ship. Then this huge iceberg collapsed and smashed heavily on the deep sea ship of the Eastern Giant. I saw the entire hull of the deep sea ship of the Eastern Giant shook violently, and the staff couldn't help but shake their feet. Fortunately, the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship is hard enough to withstand the impact of this huge iceberg, but the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship has also suffered certain damages, and must now return to the Yellow Sea ship manufacturing base for repairs. We were too unlucky today. And it didn't take long after we came out that we encountered this unlucky situation. Now that the state of eternal night has just passed, global climate changes have caused a series of chain reactions on a large number of icebergs. We should be careful. I hope that there won't be any difference on the way back, just in time for my son to get married. After this time, I can be a father-in-law. After hearing this sentence, the crew on board couldn't help but looked at the crew member who just spoke with a grimace. The Eastern Giant deep sea ship began to turn around to prepare for the French flight. At this time, the captain's radar showed that a large number of cold waves were condensing around them. Because the captain's room's radar display is connected to the air corridor system, they can also see weather anomalies around the world here. Little ones, be careful. We are going through a cold wave next. Don't let go. After hearing the captain's words, those crew members couldn't help but smile, knowing that they had driven this ship. But it was the largest deep sea ship of the Eastern Giant. How could they win them? At this moment, there was a loud bang, resounding throughout the sea, and all the crew on the Eastern Giant deep sea ship couldn't help but frown. A crack began to appear on the ice surface of the sea around them, and this crack was like a spider web, instantly spreading to the surrounding large areas of sea. At this moment, a gust of wind blows and set off huge waves, which directly smash the broken ice and a large amount of ice floes appeared on the sea. Chapter 867. Many staff members frowned slightly. After seeing this situation, they suddenly became calm, because they knew that once the ice surface was turned into countless fragments and these huge waves, then it is not as simple as a tsunami. These huge waves will be mixed with these huge ice floes and attack them. Immediately, the captain of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship frowned, and then ordered his crew to say, "Give me all the firepower on the ship. If there are 0 to ambush soldiers who dare to block our way, they will be given directly to them. Bomb it away, don't show mercy, or save any ammunition." The crew who heard this order responded immediately, and then began to adjust the firepower of the deep sea ship. The deep sea of the Eastern Giant was getting longer, and the captain frowned. The reason he did this was because these floating ice would cause certain losses to the Eastern Giant's deep sea ship. Today's Eastern Giant deep sea ship has suffered a lot of damage after being hit by an iceberg just now. If these ice floes are allowed to hit the ship's hull again, the whole body will suffer more damage, and the resources consumed for repair will be more than that. Simple. Immediately, the deep sea ship Oriental Giant fired a large number of artillery. For a time, a large number of artillery pieces were like meteors, generally bombarding the ice on the sea in front of them. After all, the huge volume of the Eastern Giant deep sea ship also possessed huge firepower. Suddenly, the Orient Giant went on a rampage with an unrivaled momentum, and directly opened up a violent route of its own, and successfully returned to the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base. At this time, the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base was also affected by the changes in the sea level. Early use of these icebreakers opened the protective line to block the huge ice flows rolled up by these huge waves. The Eastern Giant deep sea ship returned to the harbor, and the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base immediately carried out a series of repairs to the deep sea ship. Damn it, once the weather starts to change, these icebergs also start to turbulent. Presumably the seas are going to undergo powerful changes again. Then we have to be more careful. For these crew members who have been walking on the sea all year round, these icebergs are the biggest threat to them. The staff on the side took a look, and then they said, "It's true that the nearest sea is a bit uneven, but I heard that the country is going to build a project on the sea." After a crew member heard this, he couldn't help but stun slightly. The sea is not flat now. How can the country build a project on the sea at such a critical moment? This is a thankless thing. The staff member took a look, and then he said, "You can go to the official website to have a look." So far, the country has begun to publish a plan called the Heat Wave Plan. It is expected that the designated sea area will be implemented in a week. The Heat Wave Plan. The crew member opened the national official website for the first time, and directly a plan called the Heat Wave Plan was hung on the national official website. A week later, the country will carry out an operation called the Heat Wave Plan on the target sea area. The so-called heat wave plan is to use human technology to create a huge amount of heat to melt the floating ice in the sea area, thereby achieving the purpose of calming the sea. The various practices are the same as the Eastern Giant deep sea ship, using powerful firepower to open the way. Chapter 868. At this time, Ying Ziyue was in the Everest military base, visiting the military equipment developed by the Everest military base. Leader Ying, all the thermal bombs you have requested have been delivered, and you are ready to set off at any time. After hearing these words, Ying Ziyue smiled slightly and then said, since everything is ready, let's go. Nowadays, there are cities in the sky, deep sea cities on the seabed, and a large number of urban agglomerations on the land. Human footprints are all over the corners of the Earth point, and now they are finally going to step on the last piece of land. That is the sea. That's right. Ying Ziyue is preparing to build a mobile city belonging to human beings on the surface of the Earth's ocean. However, these mobile cities are mainly used for the development of scientific research, not for the migration of the population. Today's population has reached a saturated state under the development of the three cities by sea, land and air, and there is no need to build new cities to accommodate the population. Therefore, Ying Ziyue decided to move engineering technology to the surface of the sea and set up engineering and scientific research stations on the surface. The Great Eastern countries did develop artificial continents before, but that artificial continent was just a platform for them. Nowadays, science and technology are constantly developing and engineering is constantly being built. The artificial continent is no longer satisfied with their needs, so they now have to upgrade the platform of this artificial continent to build a huge artificial continent. This is his latest plan, the Glacier Arc project, to establish a completely artificial continent on the sea surface of the Ice Age as a development area of land science and technology civilization. However, he never expected that when he was about to start implementing the plan, the rising global climate would cause various chain reactions. One of them is that icebergs all over the world began to melt, and a large number of ice sheets began to collapse. The ensuing squally wind and cold wave carried its huge waves and rolled up these ice layers and began to wreak havoc on the entire sea. As there is a saying, if you want to get rich, you must first open the way. If you want to build a huge project of the Glacier Arc on the sea, you must first solve these huge waves. For the first time, Ying Ziyue also thought of the simplest and most violent method, which is to use thermal bombs to bomb the target sea area. These thermal bombs are made of the purest heat energy. After the explosion, they will only cause a series of metal pollution to the sea. These metal scraps can also be recycled after the artificial land is built and become a part of the artificial land. So this is the easiest and fastest way to quickly open up a safe sea area for the construction of the Glacier Arc continent. Then a large number of airships came to the Everest military base and began to transport thermal bombs and install them in their own firepower system. Then these airships, Good King, came over the target sea area and dropped these thermal bombs one after another. All the coastal cities near the sea can hear the rumbling sound of the target sea area, which is accompanied by huge waves. Fortunately, they have various anti-wave projects, so they can be safe and sound. The ice floes were bombarded by various thermal bombs, and there was no slag left, and all kinds of metal scraps were floating in the entire sea area. Chapter 869. On this day, the staff of the Yellow Sea Vessel Manufacturing Base saw a peculiar scene. Realizing that all the icebreakers in the port of their Yellow Sea Vessel Manufacturing Base left the port point at the beginning, they didn't understand it, but later they learned that it turned out that there was news from above that they had to call all the icebreakers to go to the designated sea area for engineering construction tasks for a while. The staff of the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base was a little confused as to why icebreakers were used for these construction tasks, and there were still so many. Soon, the state officials gave a clear answer, that is, they want to build the continent of the sea Glacier Arc. This time, the official did not provide live broadcast images, but instead gave the rights to these live broadcasts to those media, and then these media have the qualifications to conduct close-range interviews of the national project. A large number of media traveled on ships to go to sea to visit the construction of this huge project in the sea area designated by their country. When some media came to the designated sea area, they couldn't help but be shocked by the scenery in front of them and saw a large number of icebreakers forming a wide circle point in the encircling circle. Surrounded by these icebreakers, one transport ship after another is salvaging a large amount of metal scrap, and those icebreakers are responsible for alerting the surroundings to see if there is any danger that threatens the transport ship and the progress of the project point. Although the sea waves are undulating at this time, these icebreakers are like guards guarding the engineering areas. Once a large amount of floating ice approaches, they will immediately use their strengths and break them point. After seeing the scale of these icebreakers, the media couldn't help but squeeze a cold sweat in their hearts. If they hadn't obtained the shooting permit, they would have been bombed by those icebreakers. When all the audience saw the scale of these icebreakers through the live broadcasts of major media, they couldn't help but take a breath, because the scale of these icebreakers is too huge. They can't see the end of the guard circle around the city at a glance. It is really hard to imagine how big this project is going to be. Oh my god, the number of these icebreakers is too much. You can barely see the end, and I don't know how big the security circle in this sea area is. You didn't listen carefully when the official introduction just now. They all said that they want to build a continent on the sea glacier arc. This is to build a continent. How big is a continent? It seems that those artificial continents are no longer satisfied with the power of the East. Now what they have to challenge is to build an entire continent. This is not a small project. I'm pretty sure this project must be the largest project ever seen by a major Eastern country since the Ice Age. You don't know what happened yesterday. I clearly felt it when I was in a coastal city. The vibration was due to the fact that the Eastern power country wanted to open up an engineering area in this sea area, so the heat wave plan was implemented. Speaking of the heat wave project, all viewers recalled the plan that was once officially released. This is a very huge bombing plan point. If the heat wave plan is implemented on land, that area will be razed to the ground, but this time it is on the sea surface in real time. Many people have not seen it and can only feel it in coastal areas. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 870. When the heat wave plan was implemented, thousands of heat bombs were dropped on this sea at the same time. At this moment, new content appeared in the live broadcast. That is, some strange ships appeared on the sea level in the distance. They saw that these ships lined up in a row, as if pulling something behind them, and when they got close, they finally saw that what was pulling behind these ships was actually an artificial land, which was the so-called artificial platform. These ships gathered all these man-made platforms together, and then a large number of national engineers jumped off the ship, landed on these man-made platforms, and started welding these man-made platforms for the first time. A large number of man-made platforms were combined to form an increasingly larger giant platform point, but as this platform gets bigger and bigger, the surrounding waves hit the huge platform, and the impact on it is getting bigger and bigger. Once this huge platform is out of control, it will be difficult for them to control, and will even cause damage to the surrounding alert circle. So as these platforms continue to expand, they put down several iron balls on the edge of this platform. The so-called ship anchors are used to fix this huge platform. With the continuous expansion of the platform, the number of anchors fixed is increasing. In a blink of an eye, the area of these huge platforms has approached the area of a continent. The workers standing on this road couldn't help but wipe their sweat, then sighed and said, "This is really the most stressful project I have ever done." You must know that they are now above the sea, and the sea is not as stable as on land. A little carelessness will destroy the joints where they have been welded, so they must compete with these waves for time. Before the next wave comes, weld all the connections at this moment. The chief engineer of the National Engineering Department received a system reminder about the air corridor system, that a huge storm was coming towards them. The Fengshan system intercepted this huge storm for the first time, and the powerful storm ball directly destroyed the risk of this huge storm. It's that this hasn't finished the huge wind and waves produced by these storms. and powerful storm balls, and the wind and waves that are still attacking here are their biggest enemy. Zero find flowers. Once this storm hits the huge platform, it will bring strong kinetic energy to the huge platform. This kinetic energy is very terrifying, and it is very likely that all the anchors they set up will be broken. So immediately all the icebreakers intercepted in front of this huge offshore platform, using their steel bodies to block these winds and waves in order to be able to gain some advantages. The workers from the National Engineering Department were not idle either. They were immediately transported from their transport ships, and a large number of heavy objects and ship anchors were pressed on these offshore platforms. As long as their weight is stable enough, they can withstand the attacks of these huge winds and waves. And saw a huge wave attacking, directly slapped on the top of the icebreakers. Then the waves hit the offshore platform, and the offshore platform began to shake slightly. In fact, those engineers can hear the sound of the iron chains stretching on the edge of the offshore platform, rattling, hoping that the iron chains can hold it up. Chapter 871. The huge waves slapped on the offshore platform, and the entire offshore platform was constantly swaying with the wind and waves under the fear of the workers from the National Engineering Department. The storm finally stopped. Scared me to death. I thought we were really going to finish it. The area of this huge offshore platform is no less than that of a continent. It is not easy to shake it, but it is not easy to stop it. 163. Okay, don't chat there anymore. Now our top priority is to fix the sea continent under our feet as soon as possible. No one knows when the next huge wave will arrive. It may be the next second, or it may be tomorrow. Anyway, they must fix the sea continent under their feet before the next huge wave arrives. Otherwise, these huge waves hitting the mainland on the sea will have a huge impact on the project. The engineers of the National Engineering Department got on the chariot of storm and began to circle the entire sea continent to build the Xihai City. The so-called Xihai City is actually a metal ship anchor composed of a large number of metal blocks, and their tails are welded to the edge of the offshore platform. The entire sea continent is like a cruise ship, and they must have enough heavy anchors to be able to fix it in this sea area. When they were building the maritime continent, the workers of other engineering departments had already started. Regarding the construction plan of Xihai City, only a huge black statue appeared in front of them. Just such a huge black statue weighs about 1,000 tons. In order to build this huge anchor, they spent a lot of steel resources to build these huge anchors, but it is more worthwhile compared to the benefits brought by the successful construction of the offshore continent. Subsequently, under the promotion of many national engineering workers, this huge anchor sank directly into the seabed. When they pushed the anchor, they had to communicate with the engineering department on the other side using a walkie-talkie, and at the same time all the anchors are pushed into the sea. A large amount of splashes were built around this sea continent for a while, and the entire sea continent was covered by a layer of seawater. But soon, these seawaters left some gaps between the sea continents, and returned to the sea. Medium zero. After a while, all the workers from the Ministry of Engineering of the state could not help but smile with the shaking of the mainland on the sea. This trembling indicated that the fixed range project on the mainland on the sea had been completed, and these Xihai needles had been deeply buried in the seabed. With the completion of the fixing project on the sea continent, the crew on the icebreaker couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. After all, there is such a behemoth at any time. Because of the influence of the huge sea waves with the fixation of the maritime continent, the icebreakers on the sea disappeared and replaced by a steady stream of transport ships, transporting all kinds of building materials and scientific research resources to the maritime continent. And this sea continent is named the Glacier Arc Continent, and one after another scientific research bases and laboratories will be built on this Glacier Arc continent to develop world-class technology. First, the workers of the Ministry of Engineering built a small wall of life around this Glacier Arc continent to resist the invasion of wind and waves, and then built a cold-resistant city wall on the inner side of the wall of life. Chapter 872. It wasn't until the Wall of Life and the Wall of the Cold-resistant city were successively established that the continent of the Sea Glacier Arc was fully put into use. The establishment of the Glacier Arc continent has opened up additional land resources on the sea for human civilization. For a while, a large amount of scientific and technological resources have been poured onto this glacier arc continent point. A steady stream of transport ships transported all kinds of building materials and resources to the glacier arc mainland. After a whole month of transportation, the transport ships around the glacier arc mainland gradually decreased point. But what followed was a forest of steel that rose on the continent of glacier arc, and a large number of science and technology centers and laboratories were established point at this time. Ying Ziyue came to Atlantis again. After the last resource pour, the Deep Sea Research Center under the Yellow Sea Ship Manufacturing Base has been officially assigned to Atlantis. Atlantis built a site leading to the Deep Sea Research Center in the Atlantis Energy Research Department at this time. The former Deep Sea Research Center staff are all here at this time. After this period of intermittent research, finally the cornerstone of ocean technology, the heart of the ocean, has been formally studied. Point at the beginning, the staff of the Deep Sea Research Center discovered peculiar ore on the seabed that could use seawater for production capacity, and then they successively discovered the energy structure of this peculiar ore, using this peculiar ore to create a large number of hearts of the sea, and this heart of the sea and geothermal particles have the same effect. Point. When he came to the Energy Research Department of Atlantis, he saw a tank full of seawater in the center of the Energy Research Department, and in this tank there was a blue spar. Leader Ying, you are here. Ying Ziyue nodded, then glanced at the azure spar in the seawater jar. Next to it, a series of display instruments showed the heat generated by the azure spar within an hour has reached the heat required for a city. Point. The energy conversion efficiency of this material is almost equal to that of geothermal energy. The key is that its main raw material is seawater. Compared with lava and volcanoes on the earth, the amount of seawater is obviously much higher than that of them. So overall, the heart of the ocean is much stronger than geothermal particles. However, this does not mean that the heart of the ocean can completely replace geothermal ions. After all, geothermal particles are widely used as the latest energy sources, and it is impossible to replace them in a short time. Point. Today's heart of the sea is still in the trial operation stage, and it is still far behind the fully mature geothermal particles. Leader Ying, now we have developed the heart of the sea, which can basically be used as a power generation device. When this sentence was said, these staff members were also looking at him expectantly. After all, a new type of energy has been developed, and the contributions they have made are enough to be recorded in the annals of history. Point. The ultimate dream of every researcher is not to hope that their scientific research results can be recorded in the annals of history and become an important cornerstone in the history of human civilization. The heart of the sea has indeed reached the point where it can be put into use. But it is not so easy to mass produce and popularize it. You first build a continental engine on the glacier arc continent. Chapter 873. When Ying Ziyue was building this glacier arc continent, he didn't plan to treat it as a fixed continent. If he wanted to make a fixed continent, he didn't need to spend so much trouble. Point. The reason why this glacier arc continent was established is to make it a mobile continent that can support all over the world anytime, anywhere. Point. The glacier arc continent is an arc of life that carries human civilization. Its function is to collect the scientific and technological civilization of people all over the world and then pass it on like a kind of fire. Point. Just fixing it in place is not enough. So after the development of the heart of the ocean for the first time, Ying Ziyue abandoned the previous idea of using the geothermal core engine as the engine power of the glacier arc continent. The heart of the ocean is obviously better than the geothermal engine. More suitable. Point. After all, today's glacier arc continent is built on the ocean, and the sea is inexhaustible. If it uses the heart of the ocean as its power engine, it can use seawater for production anytime and anywhere. Point. If there is energy to be generated, power will follow. So a large number of engineers from the Ministry of Engineering and researchers from the Deep Sea Research Center have jointly established a large number of power centers on the edge of the glacier arc continent. The continent of glacier arc is so huge that if they want to build an engine power system that can drive the continent of glacier arc, they must establish power centers in various places on the continent. Point. This is still not a small project. The chief engineer of the National Engineering Department opened the design drawings, and the construction template of the power center was drawn on the design drawings. Surgical protection of the power center does not require much investment in resources. After all, these sea hearts are waterproof. They only need to set up a good seawater circulation system inside this power center, which can continuously transport seawater to the edge of the heart of the ocean, and then use the heart of the ocean to convert the seawater into energy. The system of this set of power center devices is also very simple. It only needs to install a large number of seawater glass tanks with the heart of the ocean in the power center like batteries, then use the pipeline to connect these seawater glass tanks, and then activate the button on the seawater glass tank to activate the heart of the sea. After the heart of the sea starts to work, the seawater will continue to be consumed. A large amount of heat energy is then generated in the seawater, and the heat energy will be transferred to the heat energy pipeline below. Afterwards, through the continuous conversion of the power center, the heat energy is converted into other electric energy, and then into power. After installing the seawater glass tank containing the heart of the ocean, the engineers couldn't help but glance at the heart of the ocean. These azure blue stones are really amazing. They can automatically convert seawater into heat energy. This is a special, or collected from the deep sea. It uses seawater transformation technology that we have never seen before. Ying Ziyue, don't think about it. Build these power centers well, one after another. A total of thousands of power centers were built on the entire Glacier Arc continent, and a large amount of energy was transported to the energy control center. These energy control centers will then control them to other parts of the Glacier continent. All of a sudden, the Glacier Arc continent became lively, and a large amount of equipment was reactivated with the injection of energy. Chapter 874. After the construction of the power center, Glacier Arc continent had its own power system. Before, they could only rely on some electrical equipment transported by transport ships to maintain their lives. As a result, they dare not use some equipment at all, because these equipment consume too much power, and the electricity brought by the transported storage equipment is not enough for them to squander. Now with the birth of the power system, they can finally use electricity to carry out their scientific research. Unexpectedly, power equipment was built so soon, and finally a large amount of electricity can be used for scientific research. A few days ago, I didn't even dare to turn on a light bulb for fear of wasting a little electricity. Some scientific research projects stopped research and development because of insufficient electricity. I heard that these power systems use a brand new power system called the Heart of the Sea, not a geothermal energy system. This is normal. Nowadays, human civilization is constantly developing. Science and technology are changing with each passing day, and changes in the energy system are also normal. We also have to conduct research as soon as possible. Otherwise, the scientific research projects we are studying will soon be eliminated by the times. At this time, a large number of workers from the Ministry of Engineering came to the central area of Glacier Arc. In this central area, they unfolded a blueprint on which was painted a tall tower, and this tall tower was their ultimate goal. The construction of the power center is only to ensure that some scientific research equipment on the Glacier Arc continent can be used normally, and the establishment of the power tower is the real purpose of truly transforming the Glacier Arc continent. The purpose of its establishment is to provide enough power to move the Glacier Arc continent. At this time, Ying Ziyue was in the office to design the transformation plan of the Glacier Arc continent. At this time, the National Meteorological Administration sent him another message. And this news is actually because of a cold wave about to produce such a small thing. How can it be possible to find him? Ying Ziyue opened the message. He knew that the director of the National Weather Service would not be such a boring person. He would send a message to him because of a cold wave. Sure enough, when he opened the news, he discovered the real clue of the news. That is, the location of this cold wave is the sea area where the Glacier Arc continent is located. We must know that the best way for the country to deal with the cold wave is to use a storm ball to create a storm in the center of the cold wave to disrupt the cold wave, or the use of geothermal bombs to offset a large amount of heat energy in the cold current of the cold wave at the center of the cold wave point. But these two methods have one thing in common. That is, whether it is using a storm ball or a geothermal bomb, it will cause huge wind and waves on the sea. These huge winds and waves are bound to have a lot of impact on the Glacier Arc continent, so they can only deal with it indiscriminately. allowing this cold wave to freeze the surrounding ice. Notify other departments not to take precautionary measures against this cold wave. Let it pass through this glacier arc continent, and notify everyone on the glacier arc continent to be prepared for the cold wave. Ying Ziyue chose to stand still at this time. Compared with the disasters and waves caused by these cold waves, the impact on the glacier arc continent was even greater, and the current glacier arc continent is not incapable of coping with the disasters brought about by those cold waves. Chapter 875. At this time, the staff on the mainland of Riverside Arc also received news that the cold wave was about to hit, and they also received a warning from the air corridor system at that time point. But when they contacted the mainland side told them that there would be no countermeasures, so that they would be prepared to protect against the cold wave, so as not to change point. This makes these staff a little confused. Although these cold waves are not a human disaster for their current configuration, what's going on? Logically speaking, when the cold wave hits, the mainland will send storm messengers or heat bombs to stop the cold wave from coming, but there is no movement at all. Maybe the mainland has its own speculation, or is there something wrong with the storm messenger and the thermal bomb? Can it not be used normally at this moment? There was an experience, the veteran member said. Then you don't understand. Now the glacier arc continent has just been established, and the facilities on it are not stable enough. Once they use storm balls or heat bombs to bomb the cold wave, then the huge wind and waves from the aftermath of the storm ball and the heat bomb will hit us. Compared to the cold wave, the huge wind and waves are more harmful to us. After hearing this man's explanation, many staff members nodded one after another, which turned out to be the case. The air corridor system reminds you that there is a large number of cold wave reactions near the sea area where you are. Please take care of cold protection and do not go out at will. With the reminder of the air corridor system, a large number of cold waves were coming, and only a white storm swept across the entire glacier arc continent. In an instant, the entire glacier arc continent turned into a white snow. Even the surrounding sea all turned into ice. Don't go out at will. Wait for this cold wave to pass, then it will be fine. Numerous staff members gathered around the heater, waiting for the cold wave to pass. At this moment, their eyes suddenly went dark, and their power system actually broke down. For a while, many staff members panicked, knowing that the loss of power during this cold wave means that they are about to face the cold wave. What's the matter? Why is the power system suddenly interrupted? Go and see what's going on right away. Zero fine flowers. Just now there was news from the power department that the South and North Korea had just destroyed the power transmission pipeline. With the establishment of the power center, the current transmission pipeline has just been laid, and now it has just been laid, most of which are only exposed on the surface and have not been covered up. Now the cold wave hits suddenly, destroying these uncovered power transmission pipelines. At this moment, an old electrician in the electric power department frowned slightly and directly picked up the cold resistant suit in his warehouse, then put it on his body and rushed into the cold wave point. When several electricians on the side saw this, they immediately took their cold resistant suits and followed the old electrician into the cold wave point. In today's cold wave, if the power system cannot be repaired in time, it will be a disaster for everyone. So they are the maintenance staff of the power system point. The power system must be restored immediately before any casualties occur. Only in this way can they live up to their responsibilities. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.